Doing great. I saw a big old hedgehog out there behind the radio station.
I saw
pulled in.
deer yesterday.
Very nice.
It's not always a good day, I feel like, when you see deer behind the radio station hanging out, chewing on some stuff. So that's good. Let's start out where we typically always start out with the Kansas City Chiefs. Interesting week for them. They have had a player, had a major, wouldn't even refer to it as an injury, but an incident. Do you want to talk about that, Ned?
It's a cardiac arrest. This guy's name is B.J. Thompson. He's a backup defensive end. I think he may have played in 1 or 2 games for the Chiefs last year. But what they were doing prior to going out on the field for a little workout, and it's non-contact. But the fact is, they were sitting in a meeting and he collapsed. They simply had a cardiac arrest. One of those, I guess, electrical disturbances that it was not similar to what the Buffalo Bills player had, because that was brought on by a blow to the chest. This was nothing. He just simply collapsed.
I thought they said he had a seizure.
Well, a seizure,
and went into cardiac arrest because of the seizure.
So therein lies the problem. Now, he recovered from the cardiac arrest. They revived him, took him to the hospital, but the question is, and the doctors have to explore this, what caused that seizure and what allowed that to manifest itself into really a dire situation. His name is B.J. Thompson. The kid, I think he's Stephen F. Austin, if I'm not mistaken, where he went to college, but didn't play very much for the Chiefs last year. And still, that's a shame, but it's a good sign because he has recovered and he's alert and awake.
That's very good news to hear. This week, the Chiefs made an interesting signing, and that's where I think we should talk most about. Mecole Hardman is back with the Chiefs for 1 year. What does that say to you, Ned?
It says to me that the Chiefs have been unable to come up with a deal with any other club for maybe a backup. Although they do have the opportunity, of course, when training camp begins to assign somebody who's been cut, things like this. But Hardman, when he was down here about a month ago, and we interviewed him down in Nixa, he was non-committal. He wouldn't say that may be part of the rules. He can't say anything because he was not a member of the team. A friend who was with me said, he's not wearing any Chiefs, nothing about the Chiefs at all. I said, he can't because he's a free agent and not allowed to. But over and above all of that, he was a good interview, but completely non-committal about being with the Chiefs. He said, I won't rule anything out, but we'll have to see what happens. Well, they did sign him, and it says to me that they think enough of him to at least take another year, a flyer on another year, and sign him.
Josh, I saw, too, that Rashee Rice has vowed that he will mature this year, and he will continue to mature so he has fewer off-field issues. Do you think this signing is maybe the Chiefs trying to protect themselves from what could be a long suspension?
I do. I think they want to have as many options in their receiving core as they can because of the uncertainty with Rashee Rice. And, he can say all he wants that he wants to mature, but I'll believe it when I see it.
Maturity, in all honesty, and we know it. I mean, he's a guy, and males have a tendency to, I'm going to make some changes, and you never do.
Right.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what he does.
I do think part of their signing Mecole Hardman is in anticipation of Rashee Rice missing some time, and so it's not a bad idea. I mean, they brought him in towards the end of the year, and he did fine. I mean, he caught the Super Bowl winning touchdown pass, and he had some. I mean, we were talking about him almost every game in the playoffs. So, and
the thing about him was he didn't start the year with the Chiefs. He was with the New York Jets, and wasn't getting any playing time. Didn't like the atmosphere. And you're a pro football player, you're a pro athlete, and you're getting paid. Well, it's up to you to be able to adjust to those circumstances and earn your paycheck. Well, he wasn't even doing that, and the Jets were more than happy to let him go.
Yep.
He was a big addition to the Chiefs, and it gave Patrick Mahomes somebody else to throw to in the wide receiving core, somebody that he trusts, that he works with. He's got a lot of speed. He has a little bit of injury issues, and he's not always been the most reliable with his hands. But you've got a core there, and especially if something doesn't happen with Rashee Rice, you've got a really good receiving core that's a big upgrade over last season.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you, it leads me also to believe, to back up what Josh was talking about a second ago, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen to Rice because the folks in Texas have not set a court date or anything of that nature yet. And I have a feeling the Chiefs know something that we don't know, and that may be that the NFL has said if the state of Texas doesn't do anything, at least for a year, then we are going to do something. That is not the protocol that's usually done. It's usually the state or whomever has jurisdiction over whatever criminal action has been held. Then the NFL follows, but they may not do that this time. It may be vice versa.
Do you? I know you know a few people that are in and around the NFL. Ned, have they said anything to you about the way that this might play out, the way that it might work, or how organizations handle situations like these?
Two options that might be employed. One is that the Chiefs issue their own penalty and say, "Hey, look, this is a personal situation. You have a personal contract, and you've got to follow the items in that contract." And he did not do that, so that's one. And then suspend them on their own, or maybe just let the whole situation morph out as to what it's going to be.
Chiefs right now have 12 wide receivers. I mean, obviously they're not anywhere near making cuts or anything, but they've got 12 wide receivers on their roster right now. Rashee Rice, Marquise Brown, who just joined the Chiefs in a trade, Xavier Worthy, who is a rookie who had high expectations for him, McCole Hardman's in that background group. Here's a name I'm going to toss out to you guys. Kadarius Toney still with the Kansas City Chiefs.
He's with them.
Are you kidding me?
And they're not planning on cutting him either, unless he doesn't prove himself.
They're just going to sit him on the bench.
Well, he has plenty of talent. Now this is a guy who criticized his bosses last year in the Super Bowl or Super Bowl week, and so there's nothing wrong with me, and that's totally alien to what you do in a circumstance like that. But no, apparently they still like the speed that he has, the acumen that he has, I guess, and they want him around. I would have thought he would have been cut a long time ago.
Yeah, me too.
Justin Watson is on that group too, and he's a guy that came up with some big catches for Kansas City last year, a guy that seems to find his way to get open at times. And here's an interesting one to me. We're going into season 3 with Sky Moore, and he is now in the third tier of Kansas City Chiefs receivers.
Right.
Is he a guy that's going to make it with the Chiefs?
That's a good question. Very good question, because I read stories where he has a very critical number of weeks in front of him here to make the team or not, because he has not really lived up to what the scouts and everyone thought would happen. So indeed, we're up to an interesting situation here as far as he's concerned.
I don't think he's going to make it. Personally.
That's unfortunate, yeah.
It is unfortunate because he had a lot of potential, but it's just never been realized with the Chiefs. Maybe this is the shot in the arm he needs to get cut from the Chiefs, and then he'll figure his mind out and be good somewhere else.
Catch him with somebody else, yeah.
Yeah, and that happens. That happens to a lot of receivers. They can't quite get it at one team, and then it all clicks for them at the next one.
Here's another name to throw out to you guys in that core is Montrell Washington, who played on the taxi squad last year and was brought up several times during the season to do punt and kick returns when they felt that they weren't sure about Kadarius Toney, that he was the guy that could handle doing the kicks, and I was impressed with the way that he played for the Chiefs.
Don't forget now, the Chiefs this year will have the rugby player on their team who is, and there's a different rule with punt returns and kickoff returns and things of that nature. So you're looking for individuals who have speed and tenacity as far as running that ball is concerned, because it all does morph into the mix that they have with the new rules.
You're listening to Ned Talk, your local live sports talk show, and we're hanging out talking about sports on a Sunday afternoon like we do. Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts, myself, Joe Westen. Interesting names when you do look at this at the Chiefs roster at this moment. I had to catch myself for a second because we have talked about it in the past. Chiefs backup this year for Patrick Mahomes. It's Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
North Dakota State.
Yep. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire still part of that running back core group that they've got there.
Yeah, but Jerick McKinnon is not.
Yes.
And therefore, I think that Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably does stay with the team. And they're not none of football is running oriented these days, and it's not letting in any secret, but it's much more pass oriented than it is. Mm-hmm. That's the way the owners want it, the way the league is structured, because you want the high scoring excitement to keep the fans in the stands. Not that they're going to disappear, but the running game is built more toward 3 yards in a cloud of dust and all that sort of thing. Well, that's not the way football's played these days and times. So again, we'll just have to see how things play out.
They made a change. They made changes in their secondary this year. They had a shutdown corner. He is gone, but they had a guy that was very impressive last year, Trent McDuffie. Very impressive, still with the team. And then Jalen Watson's going to hold down the other spot with the Kansas City Chiefs.
McDuffie, I think, if I remember correctly, was the number 1 draft choice out of the University of Washington, and a very good player. And yes, he has played extremely well. So yeah, you do have a circumstance in which the Chiefs have bolstered their defense.
You mentioned a little bit earlier, and I wanted to talk about this for just a second. Kind of let everybody know, I know that we probably have talked about this before, how this new kickoff rule works.
Okay, the kickoff and in some respects the punt too. The defense has to stay in one place until the ball is caught or it goes out of the end zone or whatever the case might be. They have to stay stationary, can't move. So when the receiver catches it, that receiver has something of a maybe step and a half head start on the defense. So that's why speed comes into the effect here. And that's what the owners want. They want that opportunity. Don't want to eliminate the kickoffs, but they do want to eliminate the injuries and so forth and so on, or not eliminate them, but certainly lessen them. And that's how the new rule will work.
And you've got if I'm not mistaken, this sort of kick box.
That
you have to put it into. If it goes into the end zone or out of the end zone, it's at the 30 now. Is that right?
Correct.
So the kick box, where is that from?
That I don't know. It may be the 5-yard line. Or I don't know. It may be from where the ball is caught. But regardless of that, there is a small box. Now, it evaporates pretty quickly because once that guy starts to run with the ball, then the defense can move and move quickly. But
what happens if they don't kick it into the kick box?
I think it's a penalty, or the other team gets the ball at the 30.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that's the way it's going to work. I found this interesting because Dave Taubes said, who is the Chiefs special teams coach, he said that Justin Reed may be doing a lot of the kicking this year. Mm-hmm. It should be interesting to watch him do that. He kicked a field goal last year for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
So very versatile guy to have at this new thing. And it should, if I'm not mistaken, make onside kicks more possible.
Kicks are allowed. They will be allowed, but there's a limitation to what they can do too. And I must admit, I've lost the knowledge on what that is. But it's altogether different. But yeah, you can still do the onside kick.
It's always amazing how the NFL is trying to tweak the sport to make it just a little bit different.
And
John?
John, glad you brought that up too, because I'm one of those who says, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But evidently they feel there are fine tweakings that can be done, and that's what they're trying to do.
And this came from the XFL, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The one about the stationary defense did, yes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. What do you think of all this, Josh?
Well, I hope that they're doing it for player safety reasons, but I feel like that's the guys, and they're really just trying to make it more exciting, like Ned said, higher scoring, because that keeps fans in the seats, keeps people watching on TV, and that all equates to revenue for them. But I mean, I remember annihilating people on kickoffs, and I remember getting annihilated on kickoffs. So I mean, that's one of the more dangerous aspects of football, is having a linebacker size player running full steam at you and having a 10-yard head start, 10 or 15-yard head start before you can even move. So I think it levels that part of the playing field some, to have the defense be stationary. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to increase the number of kickoff returns for touchdowns, or big kickoff returns, because now it's in favor of the offense getting that head start. So that's what they want. More exciting, more scoring.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how it all plays out. Yeah. I'm actually a fan of tinkering.
I don't mind it if it improves the game.
Yeah. I am. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Keep in mind, these new rules are 1-year experiments, so they could all change back next year, depending on
if it doesn't work.
How it works. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the NFL is run by a bunch of lawyers, like any sport. I'm not tossing out the NFL, but all the other sports are run by lawyers, so they got to make sure that what they're doing is they got themselves covered on it.
Right, all about liability.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about there's playoffs going on right now. We'll talk about that on Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave. A proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs radio network.
We've got our Chiefs Happy Hour coming up once again this year. I'm pretty excited about that. We do that every year with Dana Hughes. Mitch Holtis, Ned Reynolds is there for us to kind of keep everything going in the right direction. He kind of corrals everything with Mike, the intern. I'm really excited because we're just doing our Chiefs Happy Hour once again this year. I'm trying to find the information for you to pass along to you right now.
July 22nd, I believe, is the date for it.
Is when it is, and we're going to be doing that. Once again, you can get your tickets online at 1047thecave.com. Really looking forward to it. If you've never been to one of these, they are a lot of fun. You get some insight from some of the guys that are there watching things all the time. Dana Hughes and Mitch Holtis. A lot of fun to hang around with. It's presented by the law firm at Webster and Carlton. Also presented by Marshfield Chevrolet. Again, it is happening on July 22nd, 5 to 8 at the Dive on Patent. We hope to see you there once again this year for our very own Chiefs Happy Hour.
And
it's
it will
fun.
come just about, I'm going to say, maybe a week or maybe even less than a week before the fall training camp opens for the Chiefs up in St. Joe. It's right in that time period. So these guys, certainly Mitch and Danon, will have a total overall viewpoint of how they perceive the Chiefs are going to be at a critical time of the year when they start camp. Now, the Chiefs will probably take, 90, 94, 95 players to camp with them, somewhere in that vicinity. And that's... A lot of those guys are going to be jettisoned, of course.
Right. Let me tell you, Ed, there's a guy that I want you to watch. There's a guy I need you to watch during this training camp. You need to watch him. But Mitch is great, and Danon's fabulous. I think you get a little more of Danon's humor than you do typically with the Chiefs broadcast. He's a very funny guy. Very smart guy, too.
Shakalaka.
Very, very smart guy. And we're grateful to have them again this year for the Chiefs Happy Hour. All the information is on our website at 1047thecave.com. We've got playoffs to talk about before we get to Josh's beloved hockey. Let's start with the NBA. The second game is tonight.
Correct.
Yep.
Celtics owned the first game. Your thoughts? Did you watch it?
I think the Celtics are the better of the two teams, which is not to say that Dallas is not going to win any. That Dallas has a great scoring combination. And, I mean, you have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, who are outstanding scorers, and you have a pretty good level of backup core on the team. But you're playing a Boston Celtics team that is so well-rounded and playing at home. They have the home court advantage in this thing, and they'll come on, and I think Boston probably wins again tonight, although it may be a little bit closer. But the fact is that the Boston Celtics, in my opinion, are the better of the two teams.
Wouldn't you say that through several of these playoffs rounds, at least a couple of them, people would have said that the Dallas Mavericks were not the better of the two teams?
Well, I'm one of them. I thought the Minnesota Timberwolves, when they knocked out Denver and did it on Denver's home court, I thought this is really a significant circumstance here, and they're going to come away with a resounding win over Dallas, and they did not. And here Dallas goes in there, wins the first two games, actually wins 4-1, I think they were in that series. Mm-hmm. But again, you run into a circumstance of the parity in all of basketball. The talent level in this country is so good at pros, colleges. Hey, anybody can beat anybody else, and it does happen.
Jason Kidd said that he feels like the best player on the Boston Celtics. Jason Kidd, by the way, is the Mavericks coach. Mm-hmm. He feels it's Jaylen Brown. Do you think that's poking the bear a little bit? Because Jason Tatum's no slouch.
Well, no, but Jaylen Brown is a really, really solid ball player and a team player. He's playing within the context of what the Celtics do, and from that standpoint, that's why they are winning. Jason Tatum is usually the focal point of what they do on offense because he's a great player, but Jaylen Brown is the one who executes the entire circumstance. That's who they play through.
You're seeing a tandem here in Tatum and Brown that are kind of under the radar compared to some of the other groups of players that we've seen in the playoffs over the past few years and even the championship there. Jason Tatum's not a guy whose name rolls off the tongue when you name the best NBA players currently playing, but he should be.
Well, yeah, he should. Well, he's on the Olympic team,
yeah.
Or at least he's one of the candidates for the Olympic team. So, no, he may fly under the radar as far as the journalists are concerned, except in Boston and down here, where we saw him play in the Tournament of Champions, and he's a Missouri kid from St. Louis. But the fact is that on the national scale, the Celtics don't have the star player, the one who's going to stand out all the time. They don't have to, because they are so well balanced that indeed they are able to accrue the record that they do, and as a result, you have a championship level team, and I think they are the best team in the NBA.
There's been some really good basketball in these NBA playoffs.
There have been
really, really, really good. And this kind of reminds me of about a decade ago when you were getting some young teams that were kind of breaking out of the mold of the pick and roll, the San Antonio Spurs dominating the NBA for several years, and you saw the birth of the dynasty that's in San Francisco. You saw that OKC team, that never could win, had 3 terrific scores, but never could seem to push themselves past it. But it was an exciting time in basketball, and we're seeing that again right now.
That's it. You have to have a well-balanced team that is so good at every level, be it rebounding, be it scoring, be it the overall defense of your team, and being together. You have to remember now, when you're in a sport with 5 players on the court and 1 ball, you could get into perhaps a psychological battle as to who's going to be the scorer and who's not. Well, you have to play within that context, and that's where the good coach comes. I'm going to throw in a little topic here for you guys to talk about. The Olympic teams are being formed right now. For the men, they'll begin their training camp in Las Vegas, and it is an all-star. You've got LeBron James, who says he's going to play, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, people. I mean, it'll be a star team. Well, the U.S. Olympic women's team, which has not lost a game in the Olympics, and I think I'm right on this, since 1992, maybe something like that. I mean, they are overwhelmingly dominant in the world. Who do you suppose has not been invited to play?
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has not been invited. Now, what are your thoughts on that?
This kind of goes back to our discussion that we had last week when Josh wasn't here, and we talked a bit about the hard fouls that are being thrown Caitlin Clark's own way. And I don't know, I'm really torn on this one, because as a fan, I want to see her play. But I do think that, as you would say, I'm gonna sound like you right here, the media is a disservice to. There's a lot of really good players in the WNBA. A lot of really good players.
Best.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the world's best players. They're all right there. And there's a lot of really good basketball being played in the WNBA. And when you're making up that list, somebody's going to have to be left off. And I think it's easier to leave off Caitlin Clark than it is to leave off some of these other players.
Yeah, and I think that probably is the key to everything that's happened here, because she is young, she's just out of college, having some level of difficulty, if you can label it as that, adjusting to the level of play, which is certainly not Iowa versus Purdue. It's the best players in the world who are out there in the WNBA. But there's also been some kind of a contentious, I guess, perception by some fans. I've read articles both ways. Billie Jean King said, hey, you've got to stop this if we're going to build our league into a major renowned power in the world. Of course, they already are as far as the Olympics are concerned, but into one in which there's lots of headlines and big crowds and so forth, and you better stop all this action. That's one aspect. The other is it's physical. It's a different game altogether, and she has to change her game in a sense to get used to it. Make no mistake, she's a fine player. And all-time college scorer, leading scorer in history. She can do an awful lot of things. But to leave her off the Olympic team, you have to remember now, in the USA, that's a big deal. How is it worldwide? Probably not quite the headline maker that it has been in this country. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that she hasn't blended herself yet into what is going to be an all-star level of thinking.
I think they might be doing her a favor, to tell you the truth, because, first of all, the pressure. Secondly is, I think one of the reasons why you're seeing Caitlin Clark, I honestly don't think she's struggling. The other night she had 7 threes. Okay, she scored 30 points.
Yeah.
And a lot of those threes were for 25 foot or beyond.
But Joe, the game prior to that, she had 3 points.
I think
it's who you're playing.
I think it's who you're playing.
Good teams.
But I'm going to toss this out to you. For the last 3 years, Caitlin Clark has been doing what right now?
Well, she's been the scorer. She's been the leader of the team.
What right now, this time of year?
Oh, she's been off.
She's been off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's gone from one basketball season to another basketball season.
With no break.
And at a really high level of competition with a really high level of scrutiny. So therefore, this is all uncharted water for her.
And
she's a
1
rookie.
month off, which is what they shut down for, 1 month. 1 month off will do her a lot of good. But it also robs her from the experience of playing against these individuals. But she can make up for that. It won't be right away, but she can make up for it. I think it's more a psychological thing than anything else.
My thought is this. She's a rookie. I bet most rookies in the WNBA don't get the opportunity to play on the Olympic team.
Yeah.
So it's not that unusual for her not to have a chance. In 4 years, she may be the top MVP of the WNBA, and then she'll play on the next Olympic team and be awesome. So let her develop. Let her get her feet. She's in like you said, she's in a brand new league. It's a whole different level of competition. It's the highest level of competition she's ever faced, and she has to adjust to it, and she will. And that's what you're seeing. That's why she has 3 points one night and 30 the next night, because it's all adjustment. She's getting her game. She'll be fine. It's probably for the best that she's not on the Olympic team this year.
And just the grind of playing in a professional league is so much different than playing in a college league. You don't have that. So, I think everybody needs to cut her just a little bit of slack, and everybody needs to just chill out for just a minute on all this.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to hockey. I wanted to do that next segment, but I wanted to ask you before we wrap up our talk on the NBA, there's a lot of thought, a lot of pressure being put on Dan Hurley to leave UConn and go to the Los Angeles Lakers. What do you think of that move?
I think in his case, from a personal standpoint, it might be a move he needs to consider. Why? Now, coaching in the NBA, and he's had great years at Connecticut. They're national champs and all this sort of thing. But look what is happening in college basketball now. You have a transfer portal. You have the players being paid. And then now Connecticut doesn't fall into the Power 5 conferences, so they'll have a lot of money, but it won't be the $20 million or $21 million that the Power 5 conferences will have. But you have all these considerations. You don't have that in the NBA. You have your players right there. Yeah, they're being paid salaries, but they're also there under contract. That differs greatly from the college level of things. I think he may see the handwriting on the wall and say, hey, to hell with this. Why should I put up with these problems trying to recruit a guy like Josh Roberts? I've got Josh Roberts coming, for 1 year, and then he may up and leave. No, I think he may go with the Lakers.
Let me ask you this and just clarify something for me. You said that the Power 5, do they get more money?
Yes. And they have a greater amount of money that the rules makers for the not just the nil. Nil doesn't even figure into this. You get nil regardless of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of the money to pay the players, the agreement they came to is that it's between $20 and $21 million for the Power 5. Now, the colleges make up how that's going to be paid, and it's for all the athletes. It isn't just football and basketball. It's for all athletes, females included. So, again, the college has this. They have this charge on their shoulder as to how this is going to be divvied out. Now, sure, of course, football's the driving force, so some of the star players will get more money than the others. My contention is, what kind of attitude is this going to exist in the locker room when Joe Westen's making more than I am, and I'm a lineman, and I clear the place for him, and he's a great running back. Yeah. But he wouldn't be a great running back without my blocking for him. To hell with him. I'll just lie down. Well, that attitude is probably not going to exist as such. But it is in the back, maybe in the inner recesses of one's psyche.
One thing you always say, one of your common mantras on the station is, these guys are professionals. These guys go out every Sunday. They're professionals. These are not professionals, but they're being paid like professionals.
They are professionals now.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder if the code of conduct for them will change because they are now being paid.
Exactly. And it will. It has to. It's part of human nature.
Yeah.
Dan Hurley's been a top coach in college basketball for the last several years.
So the whole Hurley family has been.
Yeah, and they've done amazingly well, UConn, and that seems like they're getting the shaft right now if they're not getting as much money as some of the other power conferences.
Yeah, again, keep in mind it's because it's football dominated, and their football program, it is D1, Connecticut Huskies, but they are not at the same level as Michigan and Michigan State. Yes, they're in the same grouping, just like Missouri State will be next year when they join a Division I FBS conference. But again, your perception, you're not a Power 5 conference. The Power 5s and the Power 5 didn't really exist next year because the West Coast Conference, Pac-12 is gone. But there will be another one that comes along.
All right, we'll take a break right here so Ned can watch and see if his Phillies come back and beat the Mets 6-5, bases loaded, bottom of the ninth inning, and we'll talk hockey with Josh Roberts.
Oh, I'm excited.
On Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
Come on, Ken.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
Just to remind everybody that Chiefs Happy Hour is coming up July 22nd, 5 to 8, The Dive and Patton, Dana Hughes, Mitch Holtis, Ned Reynolds, Mike the Intern, and we hope that we see Art Haynes there. We hope that Art will be out. That'd be great to see him again. Josh, hopefully you can make it this year.
Yeah, I hope so.
Have you been before?
I've been once.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun.
It is. But when I went, it was still at the old location.
The old location, yeah.
Sunset.
Yeah, Classic Rock.
Classic Rock.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to order tickets, there's a big click here button. You can get your tickets. Be sure you do that because this event typically sells out fairly quickly. It's the Chiefs Happy Hour again this year. 104.7 The Cave, your home for the Kansas City Chiefs in Southwest Missouri. Joe Westen, Ned Reynolds, Josh Roberts. Josh, it's your time, baby. Get to talk about hockey.
Oh man, it's the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, you got a Canadian team there.
Yes, it's awesome. The Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. This final is the farthest distance between the competing teams in any Stanley Cup final. 2,500 miles separates these two cities.
Jeez.
The Edmonton Oilers are the Western Conference champion. The Florida Panthers are the Eastern Conference. Both played great hockey to get here. Game 1 was last night, and it lived up to the billing. The final score was 3-0 Florida. It could have easily been 6-4 Edmonton. Edmonton outscored the Panthers 34-10 at one point. Outshot them. Outshot them. But the Florida Panthers have this goalie named Bobrovsky that they just all call him Bob. They just chant Bob. And he is amazing. He will probably win the Vezina Trophy, which is the best goalie in hockey trophy, again for the third time. And he made some incredible stops. The Oilers have a great offensive team. They've got Connor McDavid. They've got Draisaitl. They've got this guy named Nugent Hopkins. They've got this guy named Kane. They're all incredible scoring players, and they were shooting the lights out last night, and Bobrovsky stopped them all. So Florida took advantage of a couple of turnovers by the Oilers and scored their 2 goals, and it was a 1-goal game at the end of the first period. It was a 2-goal game at the end of the second period, and then they put in an empty netter right at the end. So it was great hockey. It was really good first game of the finals. I'm excited for the next game, which will be Monday
Tomorrow night?
Yeah, tomorrow evening.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Edmonton has a player that's no slouch himself, Connor McDavid.
Oh, yeah. He will probably be the MVP of the league if he isn't already. I mean, he's amazing.
He's the next, the next in line of the heir apparents to Wayne Gretzky.
Definitely. He's the top player in hockey. Most people say that he's the best player in the world. You know, because for the last 10 or 15 years, you've had Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin going head-to-head. Both those guys are near the end of their career. They've had amazing careers. In fact, Ovechkin is probably going to end up being there's a possibility that he might break the career goals record that Gretzky has held for so many years. But McDavid is the next guy. Yeah, he is. And there are others that could be up there in that echelon with him. But right now it's Connor McDavid.
Do you expect to see more scoring as we go forward in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I hope so. But here's what's crazy about the finals. When you get into the finals, if you have a good goalie like Bobrovsky for Florida, he may be able to turn it up another notch and put on a performance like you saw from Patrick Waugh all those years ago, or John Van Beesbrook, and all these Dominik Hasek, all of these goalies that, they only have to win 4 games. And so these guys have a different mentality once they get to the finals. Yes, they're tired, they're beat up, and they're just a lot of them on adrenaline, but those goalies realize all I got to do is stop the pucks for 4 more games, and that's it. And it's really interesting to see that a lot of times that is the difference in the finals, is what the goalie's capable of doing. And last night, that dude was amazing. Florida
made it last year. They lost. They're back again this year. Do you think this is the redemption year?
I think that's what they're thinking, and Edmonton made it pretty deep into the playoffs last year and didn't quite make it to the finals. So it's kind of like that. You see it in baseball, like, didn't the Royals lose the World Series
Yes.
and then win it the next year?
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Florida lost the finals last year, and now here they are in the next year. So you see that in hockey a lot too, where they are building the team, and as the guys get experience, then that takes them to the next level. This could be that year for Florida.
Who's Jacques Plante playing for now?
He was never anything but a Canadian. Montreal
all the way.
But,
in fact, I'm not even sure. Is he still living? I don't think he is.
So.
No,
I don't think so. Florida's star player actually isn't even. He's not on their starting line. It's Matthew Tkachuk, who's the son of Keith Tkachuk, who was a longtime St. Louis Blue, for all you Blues fans. The Tkachuk family are very talented hockey players, and I've always hated all of them because they're scrappy and they get in fights, but then they get in fights and never get a penalty called on them, and then they go and score a goal right after that.
Take you back one other generation, Walt Tkachuk, who was the father of
Keith. That was Keith's father, Tkachuk. So, but yeah, it's great hockey.
All right, prediction time, you guys. What do you think in the Stanley Cup Finals? What do you think, Ned?
I just simply do not have the knowledge that Josh does, but he's right about the Edmonton Oilers. They have a great scoring team. Florida is just well-rounded, and Florida's been there. They've been there back-to-back now in championship rounds. I'd have to go, and the Florida Panthers, do have home ice advantage. I don't think it means what it does in basketball, but nonetheless, they do have that home advantage. And there is such a difference in climate. My goodness, you're in Miami for the Florida. That's where the Panthers play. That's their home ice. Home ice. Is that redundant?
Home ice, yeah.
Or paradoxical, I guess, is better. And then Edmonton is 2,500 miles away.
Right.
Then we'll see.
What do you think?
I want Edmonton to win, and it really could be anybody's game. If Florida plays the way they played last night, they're going to win. If they can play that way in every game. But if Edmonton can break through and start scoring goals like they have the capability to do, then I think Edmonton will win. But it all depends on those goalies.
So what's your best guess here?
I think it's going to go to 7, and Edmonton wins in 7. They have to
really?
They have to win it in Florida in Game 7. That's my prediction.
That surprises me. I will freely admit that I know very little about hockey. I was surprised that I was able to come up with Connor McDavid's name off the top of my head. But I would go with Florida 4-2. That's what I think, or matches, or whatever it's called.
It's games.
It's games. Okay,
but that could easily happen. I mean, it could. Yeah, that's the beauty of these two teams, and that's what's interesting. That's what's interesting, and also what keeps a lot of people from enjoying hockey is they're typically not high-scoring affairs, and so one goal makes a huge difference. And so if you're watching a really tightly contested game, then that one goal might be the dagger. So
I would say the same thing about this that I would say anytime that I just said about the NBA is that at this point you're seeing the best of the best.
Oh yeah.
So you're seeing some really, really good games in the NBA and the NHL. And if you're not a fan, maybe you should turn on and watch a game and just take it in, and you're going to maybe become a fan after that's over. I've watched a lot of the highlights, and some of the things that I see that these guys are able to do in hockey is just absolutely astounding. The athleticism is just absolutely amazing.
I agree.
All right, let's turn to the UFL.
All right.
Who's going to win today in the Battlehawks game?
Who are they playing?
Ned's just staring at me.
The United States Football League, I know up in St. Louis that they draw very well.
Yeah.
And that is the only place where they really draw very well.
The Birmingham team has only lost one game this season, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but what kind of attendance have they had?
Don't know.
Hey, your TV ratings are what make the deal, and I have not seen any TV ratings for at least in the late going, for the United States Football League. It's still, guys, it may be good football. I'm not going to deny that. I haven't seen any of it, but the fact is it is not in the right time of the year. The sports season now is baseball, playoff basketball, playoff hockey, and the Olympics coming up. So
it's competing with a lot.
It really is.
It is. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show, talk a bit about baseball. We didn't do that much today. It's Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.
You're listening to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, part of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network. Back to Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave, a proud member of the Kansas City Chiefs Radio Network.
Yeah, we didn't get much time to talk about Ned and I's favorite sports pastime, which is, of course, baseball. Your Phillies lost, though. I'm sorry about that. It was terrible. Awful.
I think it's their, 19th or 20th loss of the year where they get 47 or 48 wins. You're not going to win them all.
Yeah, no, you're not going to win them all. Right. My Yankees lost the first two games of the tilt with the Dodgers. There was 2,000 Dodger fans that marched through the streets of the Bronx, escorted by the police, and they got 2,000 seats together at Yankee Stadium, which is hard, and the Yankees should be ashamed of themselves. All you Yankees fans out there listening in New York, and I know you're listening, don't let that happen again. That's terrible. That's absolutely awful.
Hooliganism.
And I was saying to you, Ned, that it's always funny when I go in and look at the standings, how things change from week to week. The Cardinals have been playing well, middle of the pack team in their division, and now they're at the bottom again. What happened?
They are in last place. Now they're last place by percentage points because they're just a little bit behind Pittsburgh, who they play next. After today's game with the Rockies, they take a day off and then have the Pirates coming into St. Louis to play. But, hey, St. Louis is just that kind of inconsistency that is not going to, in my opinion, manifest itself into a championship level. You have to have consistency at every standpoint. You're pitching, you're hitting. Now, their hitting has come around. Here's Goldschmidt, who was 175 for much of the early season. Well, he's up to 227 now and getting some key hits. But you have to blend all of that together and have good pitching, defense, hitting. They're all the fundamentals of the game. And so far, the Cardinals have not been able to achieve a level of consistency along those lines. But if they do, hey, their division is pretty weak, gang. It's the Pirates, it's the Cubs. The Brewers are in front, but they're not uncatchable. And the Cardinals. And, hey, you've just got to start playing baseball.
What'd you say about my Cubs?
No, I said they were. Not playing at the level that they should. But hey, that's who the Cardinals play next weekend at Wrigley.
I know.
And the Royals, though, are continue to play pretty consistent baseball.
Now they did lose to Cleveland in one game, but now they have the Seattle Mariners in Kansas City, and the Mariners have been tough for them. Mariners are in the lead in the American League West, and by a substantial margin. And Kansas City, well, they're hanging in there. It's still, guys, you got to have a level of emotional and mental maturity to challenge for championships. Not quite convinced that the Royals have that yet, but they do have talent. That's a good team.
It's funny when I look at these standings each week when we do the show. The Royals and the Guardians seem to pace each other all the time. If the Royals go 8-2 on a week, The Guardians go 8-2 in a week. If this last week the Royals went 5-5, the Guardians went 5-5.
Oh,
so
wow.
the two of them just stay right there close to each other. And you mentioned the Seattle Mariners. I heard one sports talking head the other day say that they were the team most likely that teams just didn't want to play when it came playoff time.
I think that's probably right.
They're not getting a lot of press right now, a lot of pub, but they are a very, very good baseball team. So what are you going to watch on TV today, or is it chore day, Ned?
It is chore day. There are chores to be done, and the rain has backlocked those chores. So now that it's stopped, at least I think it has anyway. If I hear, guys, one more of our prognosticators, boy, we really need the rain, that person is deceased.
You're not going to go home trying to mow, are you?
I did it yesterday.
Oh, really?
In anticipation of the rain last night, thankfully, because we had well over 2 inches.
Yeah, in shorts, no shirt. Is that how you mowed?
Ned Reynolds looking like that? That's not an appetizing sight, guys.
The ladies would be all over that. What about you, Josh?
No, they wouldn't either.
I don't know what I'm going to watch. I may watch the NBA Finals tonight.
Oh, that's tonight, yeah.
We'll see. I may watch Godzilla -1.
I want to watch that. I do. I may watch. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad that we've talked about all sorts of things here, Ned.
Yeah.
Godzilla -1.
Oh,
heard it's really good.
It's amazing.
So I can't wait to see that. So maybe that's a good opportunity for me to take that in tonight.
But you've got the Yankees and the Dodgers on TV tonight.
Yeah, I think the Yankees do better when I don't watch them. So
that's the way Liverpool was this year for me.
Yeah, I watched last night. I was so tired. I went to bed. I left my wife watching the game, and then I woke up this morning and said, "What'd you do?" And she goes, "I know. I should have just turned it off." All right, guys. We won't be on next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks to Brian Tyndall, Mike the Intern, Corbin Campbell, and Nick Fury. Ned Talk on 104.7 The Cave.